Good evening, everybody. My name's Sean Spano. I'm going to facilitate our meeting tonight, and welcome to the Vallco Special Area Specific Plan Amendment to the Draft Environmental Impact Report meeting. So tonight's meeting is designed specifically to receive public comments on the amendment to the draft EIR Environmental Impact Report. I'm going to get us organized for the meeting and set up our process. So right now we're doing welcomes and introductions, and the meeting purpose, as I said, it's all focused on the draft EIR amendment. We have a future council member here. I see her in the future being a council member, already plugged into community meetings. That's wonderful. Sean Spano, facilitator. I am an independent facilitator, so I'm not affiliated with Cupertino staff. I'm not a staff member, and I'm also not with the consulting firm that's doing the EIR, so I'm here as an independent facilitator. We are going to have a couple slides from Christy Weiss, who is with David Powers and Associates, and she'll help set the content for the meeting tonight in terms of a little bit about the draft EIR and a little bit about the amendment. And then as we move, and just a few slides, not a lot of slides. And as we move into the third item there, which is really the heart of the meeting and the reason why we're here, which is the public comment on the draft EIR and amendment. Yes, question?
I think it's unacceptable for you to be campaigning for city council members in this forum.
Yes.
There happens to be other people here running for council as well.
Yes.
And it's highly inappropriate.
My mistake. It was kind of a joke. It was the young child here. I'm sorry. I was being playful. I apologize if I was being playful inappropriately. Okay, so as we move forward here about the meeting, the public comment period, as we hear your comments, are really focused on the amendment to the draft EIR, and again, Christy will outline that for us. When we do come to the public comment period, and then I'll help organize that and set that up, we have comment cards, and there were comment cards on the table out front. I have some over here on the rack over here, not the blue ones. We're working on the white comment cards. And so we would ask that you fill out your name and the information here, and then you can hand that to me, and then I'll queue people up for speaking tonight. Also, and I'll mention this a couple times tonight, if you don't want to provide verbal oral comments tonight, then please just write your comments. There's a big space on the back of the comment card, and then we'll collect those, and those will get integrated into the responses that we'll be collecting tonight. Also, that I'll mention this before we break for the evening tonight, there's an opportunity after the meeting to provide written comments. And those comments can be collected right up till August 20th on the amendment to the draft EIR. So just in terms of that piece, if you turned on the back, and a lot of that information is right here on the front of the hard copy agenda that's on the table out front. On the back, I'm just going to walk us through just real quickly and sort of set the context for the meeting here in terms of how we got here. So on the back, you'll see the CEQA objectives through environmental impact report process. And so this is what CEQA is designed to do in terms of requiring an EIR. This is the third EIR meeting on the Vallco specific plan. The first meeting was the notice of preparation, and then there was a public scoping meeting that came within the notice of preparation meeting period. And that meeting was on February 22nd. What do you want to see in the EIR? Here are what typically goes into an EIR, and then what factors are you suggesting that the EIR covered? There was a draft EIR that was produced. There was a review period for that draft EIR, started on May 24th and ran through July 9th. And then there was a public comment meeting on the draft EIR right here in this room, and that was on June 19th. So this is the third and final EIR meeting, preparation EIR meeting on the review period, which is started on July 6th. It will go through August 20th, and then obviously we are here tonight, August 7th, which is the public comment period. Moving down the list here, The responses from all the EIR meetings, including tonight's meeting, will all get integrated into a final EIR, And that will go in front of the Environmental Review Committee, it will go in front of Planning Commission, and ultimately in front of Council. And at every one of those meetings, there's an opportunity to provide public comment. And the timeline is the certification of the EIR by the City Council looks to happen likely early fall, September, October timeframe, and then the decision on the project itself likely to happen early fall, September, October timeframe. Okay, with that said then, I think I've covered all my notes here. Let me move us forward. Purpose of our meeting tonight, overview of the draft EIR and the draft EIR amendment, which Christy will walk us through in just a moment, and then obviously receiving comments on the amendment to the EIR. So with that said then, let me turn it over to Christy Weiss from David Powers and Associates, and she's gonna walk us through the content for the meeting tonight. Christy?
Thanks, Sean. Good evening. My name is Christy Weiss. I'm a project manager at David J. Powers and Associates, and our firm assisted the city in preparing the EIR for the project. So as Sean outlined in the previous slide, the first purpose of the meeting is to give you a brief overview of the draft EIR. The draft EIR was circulated for public review between May 24th and July 9th. And the draft EIR evaluated the environmental impacts of the proposed project, which is summarized in the first row of the table. The draft EIR evaluated 3 alternatives to the project as well that could reduce or avoid the project's significant impacts, as well as the no project alternative that is required under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. Subsequent to the publication of the draft EIR, the city prepared an amendment to the draft EIR. This amendment was published on July 6th, as Sean mentioned, and the public comment period for this document ends August 20th. The purpose of the EIR amendment is to analyze the housing-rich alternative, clarify general plan amendments, refine the TDM, or Transportation Demand Management Program, add a specific plan assumption, refine select mitigation in a condition of approval, and update existing available general plan allocations. The purpose of the EIR and the EIR amendment is to inform decision makers and the public about the project's impacts, identify measures to avoid or reduce impacts, and identify alternatives to the project to avoid or reduce impacts. So just a quick overview of the EIR process. Sean also mentioned it. There are 6 key steps to this process that we're going through. So the first step was the publication of the Notice of Preparation, or the NOP. And the NOP notified the public and agencies that the city is preparing an EIR for the project. The required 30-day circulation period for the NOP was February 9th through March 12th. The next step was the scoping meeting for the EIR, which was held here on February 22nd, where we got feedback on the scope and the content of the EIR. The next step is the preparation and circulation of the draft EIR, which the 45-day period began on May 24th and ended July 9th. Right now, we're preparing and circulating the EIR amendment, which started to circulate July 6th, and the conclusion of the circulation period is August 20th. Once that comment period ends for the EIR amendment, the city will prepare and circulate a final EIR, which includes responses to comments received on the draft EIR and the EIR amendment. It's anticipated that the final EIR will be available this summer. After the EIR is prepared, the city will hold public hearings to certify the EIR and make a decision on the project. As I just mentioned, the EIR amendment is currently circulating, and we hope you get a chance to look through the document. When you do, you'll see that the document is organized into these sections listed on the slide. The primary sections are sections 2, 3, and 4. Section 2 is draft EIR text revisions. So revised or new text is going to show as underlined, and deletions are shown with a line through the text. Section 3 discusses the housing-rich alternative. And you'll see the housing-rich alternative is highlighted in green on the slide up there, and it consists of 600,000 square feet of commercial uses, 1.5 million square feet of office uses, 339 hotel rooms, 3,250 residential units, 65,000 square feet of civic space, and a 30-acre green roof. Section 4 includes environmental issue areas, and this section evaluates the impacts of the housing-rich alternative on the following environmental issues listed on this slide. Before I pass it back to Sean, I just want to reiterate that we hope you get a chance to review the EIR amendment, and if you have any questions or comments, to please submit them to the city by August 20th, and the comments that you submit will be responded to in the final EIR.
Excellent, thank you, Christy. So for those of you looking to speak tonight, there are the speaker cards, as I mentioned, over here on the tray, and then there were some on the table out front. So please fill out the card. There are three options here. One is for speaking only, the other is to provide written comments only, and again, there's plenty of space on the back. And then if you want to provide written comments, provide your comments on the back written, and then obviously you're able to speak here as well. So, do I have speaker cards for people who would like to speak tonight? Come on up.
I have a question. We're only given 2 minutes. How many people are here? I think we have almost an hour.
So what we'll do is we are scheduled until 7:15, and we will be here until 7:15 as the publicly noticed meeting. So let's start with the 2 minutes, and then let's work around a second round. That'll give you another opportunity to speak, just given that we'll have plenty of time to hear from the speakers tonight. I'll take the cards if you're ready, sir. Okay, and if you don't mind just stating your name before you speak, that would be great. So Kitty, you're up.
Hi, I'm Kitty Moore, and I'd like to talk about the Phase 1 environmental site assessment that we had on the project. It is missing some information. Myself and some assistants went to the fire department, Santa Clara County Fire Department, to pull records, and it took us between 8 and 10 hours to collect all the records from the fire department. And then I looked at the previous ESAs which had been done. The 2003 environmental site assessment says that the Cirrus Associates contacted the Santa Clara County Fire Department with a request to review files for the property. According to the agency, hazardous materials or underground storage tank files were not found for the property address. That was 2003. In 2006, the same company, it doesn't appear that they even contacted the fire department. And then WSP contacted the Santa Clara County Fire Department for information on any above ground or underground storage tanks, hazardous waste storage inspections, and plans associated with the mall property. According to the Santa Clara County Fire Department, no records were found. I have several pounds of records from the fire department. And I also looked at what the current Cornerstone Earth Group provided, and they do not have all of the records indicated. And they show pictures of various issues, but they don't delve into them, and we don't have a Phase 2 environmental site assessment. How's my time?
You're at 20 seconds, but just keep going. We'll have plenty of time.
Okay, so they only went up to 2010 with their records, and they're missing some curious things. They show a, what they call, let me get to the picture, concrete access cover near storm drain to the suspected waste oil underground storage tank location at Sears Automotive. The steel cover of the acid neutralization chamber adjacent to the battery room at SAC, in my records, it shows that they had tetrachloroethylene on site, which is a degreaser. It's also known as PCE, which is commonly called dry cleaner fluid. There was no indication in this record that that was there. It's really hard to get out of the soil. I think I've got enough for the first round.
Excellent, very good. Thank you. Stephen, if you're ready.
Sure. On page 174 and 175 of table 4.17-3, it shows the existing and the existing with project ratings of the intersections, and I just wonder how this was done, because for Wolfen I-280 North and Wolfen 280 and Wolfen I-280 South, it shows no change in the level of service for the on and off ramps of I-280, either AM or PM, when this project is built. And I'm wondering how it's possible, how are they measuring this, that there is no impact on any of these intersections? And the other issue is, when it says existing, the Apple campus, the spaceship, quote, spaceship, is about 2/3 occupied now. So how can they do the existing when the major facility there is not occupied yet, not fully occupied? And would that change the level of service of these intersections once the additional 4,000 to 5,000 employees are at the Apple Park site?
Very good, thank you. Other speakers? Anybody else wish to speak tonight? Kitty, would you like another 2 minutes? Oh, no, please, come up.
I'll take a small turn.
Thank you.
Lisa Warren. So I have not reviewed the amended one as much as I had the previous one, and I think we're only supposed to speak to what the amendment was. But the first thing that caught my eye in the graph that actually you showed is this is called the housing rich alternative, and yet the office has increased 50% as well. I would argue that it is also an office rich. Anyway, and maybe it's because the proposed specific plan, which is incorrect according to our general plan, mentions 2 million, and the housing rich only mentions 1.5 million office, so maybe that's why it's not rich in office, but it still is. And the error that has been brought up several times is the proposed specific plan variety here shows 800 dwelling units when really the general plan only allowed for 389 based on the housing numbers that were chosen by the council. So I guess, once again, the biggest issue seems to be no one really knows what's being studied or how it's being studied. And you can argue that they do because you have these numbers laid out. But when you have it all over the place, it's hard to say, oh gosh, the study isn't very good because you're forgetting this portion, or you need to add this portion when you may have it in another part of the study. I'm not familiar, and I'm no expert, with such a wide range of project alternatives, and I question, do the alternatives really achieve similar objectives with the numbers all over the place? And do they propose, and do they lessen the impacts, which is what's required, and I believe that was one on one of your slides. I would like to mention something I learned a couple of weeks ago from city staff member economic development, that currently Cupertino has 95% of the retail is restaurants. I believe you'd have to ask Angela if I'm quoting that correctly. That's a huge number of restaurants. And as I've learned from some others, greenhouse gas issues are huge with restaurants for various reasons, and I won't go into that now. So I don't know if that was studied properly. If not, I would hope that it will be. And let's see, I'm gonna run out of time. I think I handed you the wrong thing.
You did.
I'm looking at my form.
And I was going to come back with you and make sure that I got the right document. Thank you very much. Excellent. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Let's see, what else? I think that's it for now.
Very good. Thank you, Lisa. And on the oral verbal comments, Christy and her colleague are here obviously taking notes, so we're capturing all that's being spoken here tonight. Okay, the floor is open for anybody else who would like to speak. And Kitty, would you like to have another couple minutes?
I have more than two. I could get a full thought out. Okay, so I was looking at the draft EIR and where to start? Okay, what showed up now in the draft EIR is the density bonus law. And density bonus law wasn't in the first draft EIR. And that's important because it makes a big difference about form-based code. And looks like they say that they need to use density bonus law in order to get to their totals. And they're claiming 35%. Well, at 35% density bonus, they get concessions. And a minimum of about 2. And then if they increase their affordable housing just a little bit, then they get to 3. And we're starting to sound exactly like SB 35, aren't we? So, what did I write? The draft EIR amendment makes the assumption of meeting the state density bonus law. It's an assumption of providing 35% affordable housing, which qualifies them for the maximum density bonus units. And then that results in concessions, which negate the form-based code specific plan process. So I kind of feel like we've been trolled for 6 months. And that's not good. So you're basically back to SB 35 with no height or setback requirements because they may be taken as concessions. In Vallco SB 35, they used their concessions to reduce retail from 600,000 to 400,000 square feet, to not provide the same size BMR units as the market rate counterparts, and to not provide the same number of bedrooms in the BMRs as the market rate units. For comparison, they provided studio and 1-bedroom BMRs, and they provided larger studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, and 5-bedroom market rate units. And those were the concessions that they chose. So it seems to me that we've been spending our time doing form-based code when the heights that we've been talking about can be taken as a concession and they can build to whatever height they want. The setbacks can be whatever they want and take those as concessions. And not only that, but you put it right in the draft EIR that's the route that you need to take in order to get to those number of units. So that if the neighbors are wondering, what kind of heights can I expect in my backyard? If Apple's wondering, what kind of heights can I expect in my backyard? This process is not going to give them an answer. So I'm going to go sit down and come up with another topic.
Okay, so I am going to leave the floor open for others who want to speak. And again, the speaker cards, the white speaker cards are over here. And please feel free to do that. And if you're not wanting to provide verbal comments tonight, please provide us your written comments. We would be happy to receive those. So we're just going to go into lull mode here, and because we're obligated to be here till 7:15, and so we'll just wait and see if other people come and want to speak.
There's a problem Hello again, Kitty Moore. There's a problem with the noise versus the traffic sections of the draft EIR because they don't have the same allocations that they're studying. So that needs to be looked at. And I didn't have time to go through every appendix to see if they all were studying the same project, but there's a difference in that. And additionally, the project that we're looking at here doesn't match the two projects that we ended up with at the end of the charrettes either. And so that kind of calls into question, do we need to have yet another round of amendment to this process, draft EIR amendment? Because again, I don't know who made the decision, but they kind of pushed the two project alternatives together into one and then studied that, but it doesn't quite work that way. I have a concern, I think Lisa already brought this up, that 95% of the new commercial use in Cupertino is restaurants. Restaurants generate 4 to 10 times the amount of traffic of regular retail, and we don't know what percentage of restaurants they anticipate to have. Previously, like in the SB 35, it looked like they had 120,000 square feet of entertainment, and then I think 147,000 square feet of restaurants and 133,000 square feet of straight retail. But here, if the new commercial is actually coming in at 95%, and that is from the economic development manager, Angela, that number, then we can expect a higher amount of traffic. And then the other issue with restaurants is that they have a higher carbon footprint and greater greenhouse gases, because you're basically starting, if it's Alexander's, you're starting with the cow in the pasture, all the processing, the travel, and then the extra traffic to that location, and then the exhaust, et cetera. For water usage, just to point this out, it was a little over 3 times Apple Park, which is a shockingly high amount, given that Apple Park is 176 acres with 5.9 million square feet of development, including the parking on it. And this alternative ended up, this new amendment ended up larger than the SB 35 plan that we already had. We'll see. Okay, I'll take a seat and find something else.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, Lisa Warren. So, parks. The proposed Pacific Plan had the 30-acre park. The housing-rich alternative that we're talking about tonight, again, has the 30-acre park. Yeah, we need 30 acres of park, but we don't need it on the roof. And on a roof park that's slanted, much of it isn't even accessible to the general public because it's amenities for other things on this property and these proposals. There's no real breakout showing what would be available, but it is expected to be much smaller than the 30 acres, obviously. And what is there is not likely to be spaces where you can play cricket, play soccer, because you're on a slope for most of it. Now, that could be wrong. It could be fixed. It could be flattened. Who knows? It's not the greatest place to be playing sports right next to the congested freeway, but we do need parks, and I don't think there's any argument from anyone in the city that the east side is park starved and density challenged. So I would hope that the study dives into that more. There are actually places where you can look for statistics on the physical fitness levels of school-age children, let's say, or young adults. And the California Department of Education is one that publishes things, but I'm sure there are more. It basically shows, if you look at demographics, park demographics, that the schools that underperform from other schools in any given area, maybe I shouldn't say any given area, in some areas do more poorly in their physical fitness tests, and one may wonder if that has to do with the lack of parks and the lack of space to physically fit yourself. So please do look at the parks more carefully, and the way the parks are labeled. I understand there's a park in Cupertino currently that is really just 2 strips of grass on either side of a roadway, and that's not exactly a park. So if the general plan needs to amend their description of a park, so be it, but we need to have real parks. Thank you.
Kitty Moore. I'll talk some more about the environmental site assessment that was provided. In it, they say Sandhill Property Company, this is Cornerstone's report, and they provided this, by the way, back in February. Before this was made public, the city would have had a copy of it. Sandhill Property Company did not complete the provided questionnaire, so they I'll start at the top. To help obtain information on current and historical site use and use storage of hazardous materials on site, we provided environmental questionnaires to each of the 3 property owners. So, you know, you've got Vallco proper property owner, Hyatt House, and I don't know the name, the owner on the northwest next to the freeway. Sandhill Property Company did not complete the provided questionnaire. However, they referred Cornerstone to the previously completed reports listed in Table 3, which are the ones that I mentioned earlier that did not get data from the Santa Clara County Fire Department, and provided copies of each. They also provided access to the site and contact information, etc. Interviews with previous owners and occupants. Contact information for previous site owners and occupants was not provided to us. Therefore, interviews with previous site owners could not be performed. That to me doesn't sound like the owner was particularly helpful for doing this report. So going back to 1969, what they found is building plans depict, this is Sears Automotive Center, several features associated with the auto center, including 2 adjacent 500-gallon new oil USTs and an underground storage tank, and a nearby 1,000-gallon waste oil underground storage tank located west of the building, a sump pump in the southwest corner of the building's basement, multiple hydraulic vehicle lifts, battery storage room with drains leading to a below-ground neutralization chamber located east of the building, and as we know with batteries, a neutralization chamber is likely to have lead. In fact, one of the floor photographs shows the white markings, which look like lead residue on the floor. From the battery storage room. Where was I? A below-ground sand and grease interceptor located east of the building, grease, oil, and transmission fluid distribution piping throughout the interior of the building, an elevator with the southeast portion, and 2 10-horsepower air compressors. That part isn't as important. And then their contract said that they removed a couple, 2 of them, in 1986. No details regarding the contents or location of the UST were described in the contract. That's not good. And then they have the dates of various for hazardous materials inventories indicate that various automotive-related hazardous materials were stored on site, including oils, transmission fluid, brake fluid, antifreeze, lead acid batteries, refrigerants, among others. These materials were noted to be contained in drums and ASTs. I do want to back up a little bit that in this report they show the historical photographs which indicate there were several buildings on the southeast corner of the Sears lot, and I have a suspicion that there's some underground storage tanks in there. They were torn down in about 1968 when there was a gas station at Sears, And because it was an orchard from at least the 30s, I believe that you probably have some lead arsenate residue. And then after lead arsenate is lead mixed with arsenic and water that they used to use as a pesticide, and then they moved on to DDT, which was also banned. So there hasn't been any testing of that. So I just want to bring that up. And then between 1991 and 2010, from the Department of Environmental Health records, which I also obtained, and they're showing it here, inspection reports noted multiple violations, including unlabeled waste containers, open containers, improper record keeping, improper management of lead wheel weights, lack of proper training, and lack of secondary containment. The presence of an oil-water separator is noted that reportedly was connected to 4 floor drains within the auto service shop. Now, about the JCPenney, people are saying, oh, it's a closed case. Well, no, it's not. Because they had to leave an underground storage tank behind, and they also left contaminated material behind in that study. Even though it says online, when you look at the record, that it's a closed case, that is still there. And in the Cornerstone report, they indicate that there is material that was still dripping when they did their study, and Sears, to my knowledge, has been closed for 3 years. And really at issue with the underground storage tank is that it is part of the health and safety code that they be cataloged and that you indicate that their existence, and there's actually very high fines per day to keep an abandoned underground storage tank on your site. So it's not a little deal.
You have more, Katie?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I haven't gotten a chance to write my novel about this, but I'll get to it because we have a few more weeks. Thank you.
Very good. And so we will be here till 7:15 tonight, and we'll close at 7:15.
Okay. I am a little bit confused about the update existing available general plan allocations part that you mentioned with the EIR amendment, and my concern with that, I actually question whether having the density bonus units and the assumption of density bonus law in the EIR, if that is actually even legal. I think it's really odd. And like I said before, because we looked at this in the SB 35 project, that they were using the density bonus law, and then saw that the concessions allow for, you can have increased heights and setbacks and make changes on the regulations to make your project more financially feasible, right? So I'm kind of questioning, because this is such a moving target project, and I don't see how the city can, in good faith, come out and say, here's your cross-section, this is what you can expect at Vallco. This is the height. It's going to be 160 feet, I think the first EIR said. And yet you're claiming, and you can't go and tell the developer, oh, you don't get to have density bonus law, the concessions. So I think the project ends up being so much of a moving target that I don't know that that it works, that it's viable, and that just even among the alternatives, the alternatives are supposed to, obtain similar objectives, but have less impacts than the original proposed project, and it doesn't seem like that happened either. So, all very confusing. So, just looking at the traffic study. My concern is that it used the shopping center for the retail portion, and we've already said a couple times that we're having 95% restaurants. So the shopping center would then yield a much lower amount of traffic than what we're, realistically going to end up with. So I'm concerned about that part. And also with the calculation on the green roof amount of traffic, that seemed like if it is something that's going to be a regional draw, like a tourist attraction type of thing, like Apple's visitor center has become, you could end up with, triple the amount of traffic there. And the numbers for the transit hub were around 808 daily trips, and that's in and out. And that also sounds a little bit low out of the total. And I think that's enough. Good night.
Okay, and that brings our meeting to a close tonight. If you want to make comments after tonight's meeting, the information is on the agenda to send the copies to the planning department, and those copies can go via email or regular mail. Thank you very much, and good evening.